The crystalline halls of Meridian Prime reflected light in 1,000 directions. The walls were made of a material that did not exist on Earth. They shone like diamonds but moved like water. The air felt cold and somehow heavy, though there was gravity everywhere. Captain James Bradford stood alone in the center of the chamber. He wore the dress uniform of Earth Space Command. It was blue with silver stripes. Around him, in raised platforms arranged in a circle, sat the representatives of the Galactic Council. There were 47 of them. Each represented a different species. Each was powerful. Each had the authority to make decisions that affected billions of lives across thousands of star systems. James had come to ask for one thing: acceptance. He wanted humanity to join the Galactic Council as an equal member. It seemed simple to him, but nothing in the galaxy was ever simple. The delegates looked down at him from their platforms. Some sat in chairs. Some floated in special containers filled with liquid gas. One species had no body at all but appeared as a bright light that moved inside a protective field. They all watched James with eyes that ranged from simple to strange. Some had 4 eyes. Some had none but could sense him anyway. The meeting had been going on for 2 hours. James had explained humanity's achievements. He talked about how Earth had survived in a harsh solar system. He explained how humans had overcome disease, poverty, and war. He told them about human art, music, and philosophy. He spoke with respect and hope. Then Delegate began to speak. Was from the Empire. His species was tall, with skin like polished metal and eyes that glowed with cold intelligence. They had been part of the galactic community for 30,000 years. They had conquered 7 other species. They had built monuments that took centuries to complete. They were proud, and they did not hide it. "This is a joke," said. His voice came from a device that translated his language into something humans could understand. "You bring us a species that has only traveled in space for less than 200 of their years. They live for barely a century. They are fragile creatures who need so much to survive. They eat, they sleep, they need gravity and oxygen. They have emotions that control their actions. They cry, they break easily." Leaned forward on his platform. "We have species that are immortal. We have beings who can survive in the vacuum of space without protection. We have civilizations that have been building for longer than humans have walked upright on their little blue planet. And you ask us to accept them as equals." Some of the other delegates made sounds that might have been laughter. Some simply nodded. Counselor Lyra spoke next. She was from the Collective, a race of beings who were connected to each other through telepathy. They did not need to speak. They could share thoughts instantly across vast distances, but when they spoke to others, they used words. "Their emotions are a weakness," Lyra said. She had a long, thin body with too many joints. "They form attachments to each other. They sacrifice themselves for other individuals. They mourn when others die. They are driven by love and fear and anger. These things make them unpredictable. These things make them dangerous to themselves and to others." She gestured down at James. "Look at him. He is here trying to speak for his entire species. But what does he really know about what all humans want? His kind cannot even share thoughts with each other the way we do. They are isolated inside their own heads. They are alone in ways that we cannot even imagine. How can such a broken species be trusted with power?" More sounds of agreement rippled through the council chamber. Some delegates made clicking sounds. Some produced low musical tones. Some simply nodded their heads or pointed their appendages in agreement. James listened to it all. His hands were still. His face did not change. Inside, he felt the words like punches, but he did not show it. He was trained for this. He had known it might be difficult. He had known some species might not understand. But hearing it said out loud was different from imagining it. A representative spoke. There were beings of pure energy held together by magnetic fields. This one called itself Architect Prime 7. "The question before us is simple," Architect Prime 7 said, and its voice sounded like wind through a crystal cavern. "Are humans fit to join us? I have reviewed their records. In their short time in space, they have already created wars in the void. They have built weapons that destroy planets. They compete with each other over resources that they could share. Their history shows violence and destruction. Why would we invite more violence into our council?" The chamber erupted in noise. It was not angry noise, but it was strong. 47 different voices speaking in languages that humans could not understand without devices, all agreeing that humanity was not ready. That humanity was too young, too weak, too emotional, too dangerous, too broken. James stood there. He let them speak. He let them mock his entire species. He stood alone while beings from across the galaxy told him that humans did not matter, that humans were mistakes, that humanity had no place among the great civilizations of the stars. He thought about his daughter who was waiting for him on the moon base orbiting Earth. She was 12 years old. She wanted to be an explorer. She wanted to visit other worlds and learn about other species. She wanted to know that humanity could be something great. He thought about all the humans on Earth in the colonies on the ships traveling between stars. They were counting on him. They believed in what he was doing. And then James understood something. The council did not want to listen. They had already made up their minds. Words would not change anything. Explanations would not matter. The only thing he could do now was show them what humanity really was. So James waited for the noise to quiet. It took several minutes. When it finally did, he was ready. He looked at Lyra. He looked at all 47 delegates who had just spent hours explaining why humans were not good enough. He looked at them with clear eyes and a straight spine. Then he spoke once, in a voice that was steady and calm. "I came here with hope," he said. "I came here asking for a chance, but I see now that you have already decided what you think of humanity. Your minds are closed. Words from me will not change them, so I will not try to change them." He paused. The chamber was absolutely quiet now. "I will return to Earth, and I will tell my people that the Galactic Council does not see them as worthy. I will tell them that we have other things to do. We do not need the Council's permission to survive. We do not need its approval to matter. We never have." He turned slowly to face the exit of the chamber. "When you are ready to meet humanity as equals, you know where to find us." Then James Bradford walked. He walked across the smooth floor of the crystalline halls. He walked past the raised platforms where the council sat. He walked toward the exit without looking back. His footsteps made soft sounds on the crystal floor. Not one delegate stopped him. Not one tried to call him back. The message from Captain James Bradford reached Earth in 4 hours. On a planet where billions of people lived and worked, the news spread quickly. Humans learned that their representative had walked out of the council chamber. Humans learned that the greatest species in the galaxy had rejected them. Humans learned that they would have to find their own way. The reaction was not what the council expected. There was no rage. There were no threats. There were no demands for war or compensation. Instead, humanity went silent. Dr. Monroe worked in the Central Communications Hub on Luna Base. She was the chief scientist responsible for maintaining contact between Earth's government and all the human colonies across the solar system and beyond. For 23 years, she had coordinated with the Galactic Council. She had sent messages, received replies, and helped organize humanity's peaceful entry into galactic affairs. On the day after Captain Bradford's return, received an order from Earth's leadership. It was simple and clear. Stop all communications with the Galactic Council, all of them. Every message, every routine report, every coordination, every request for information, all of it ended. Deleted the contact protocols. She removed the Council's emergency frequency from the main systems. She informed all human outposts and ships that they should no longer respond to Council communications. If a message came in, they would acknowledge it, but they would not reply with words. They would simply wait. Across human space, the same thing happened in different places. Trade coordinators canceled orders that were scheduled to be delivered to alien markets. Scientists deleted collaborative research projects that had been planned for years. Military advisors told their counterparts from other species that all joint operations were suspended. Engineers stopped sharing technical specifications. Doctors halted the sharing of medical research. It was not dramatic, it was not loud, it was quiet and complete. The Council did not understand it at first. Delegate sent a message to Earth asking for clarification. His message was received. A computer acknowledged that it had been received, but no human answered. No explanation came back. There was only silence. Counselor Lyra tried a different approach. She sent a formal diplomatic message suggesting a second council meeting. Perhaps, she wrote, humans had been too sensitive about the first meeting. Perhaps they could discuss things in a calmer way. She sent the message and waited for a response. Days passed, no response came. The representative, Architect Prime 7, sent 3 messages, then 5, then 10. Each one said something different. Some were apologies, some were explanations of why humans were actually welcome. Some were requests for clarification about why humanity was being so difficult. All of them were acknowledged. None of them were answered. The merchants were the first to truly feel the impact. Humans had been trading with them for years. Technology was excellent for processing metals and crystals. Human technology was excellent for creating machines that could work in harsh environments. Together, they made a partnership that made both species richer. They sent their usual order for 10,000 units of human-made excavation equipment. The order was acknowledged as received, but no equipment was sent. They waited for weeks. Then they sent an urgent message asking what had happened. The response was brief. All trade with non-human entities is suspended until further notice. This meant millions of credits in lost profit. They immediately sent a message to the council demanding an explanation. They wanted to know why humans were being so unreasonable. They wanted this problem fixed. The council sent a message to Earth requesting negotiations. The message was acknowledged. No negotiation happened. Within 3 weeks, news had spread throughout known space. Humans had withdrawn from galactic affairs. They were not attacking anyone. They were not making threats. They were simply leaving. All the connections that had been built were being cut, one by one, cleanly and completely. An ancient species that valued wisdom and patience understood what was happening before anyone else. They sent a message to the Galactic Council with a simple observation. The humans have given us a gift. They are showing us that they respect boundaries. They are showing us that when they are not treated well, they do not fight back. They simply remove themselves. This is a sign of a noble species. We should perhaps reconsider how we treated them. But dismissed this. They did not worry about wounded feelings. They had more important things to do than chase after one species that was acting like a child who had not gotten what it wanted. This was a mistake. 3 months after Captain Bradford's return to Earth, the impact became impossible to ignore. 7 scientific breakthrough discoveries had been made by humans. The first was a new type of medical treatment that could cure diseases that had plagued several alien species for centuries. The second was a more efficient way to produce energy from stars. The third was a new theory about how to navigate through space in ways that made faster-than-light travel more reliable. The humans published all of this information. They did not send it to the council for approval. They did not ask permission to share it. They simply released it into the open scientific community, and any species that wanted to use it could use it. They received the cure for their most serious disease. Merchants gained access to the energy technology and could suddenly produce more goods at lower cost. Species across the galaxy began to benefit from human innovation. And none of it came with the approval or assistance of the Galactic Council. The Council sent angry messages. They demanded to know why humans were sharing critical technology with the broader galaxy without Council oversight. They insisted that these discoveries should have been submitted to them first. They threatened sanctions. All messages were acknowledged. None were answered. In the cities of Earth, humans worked. They built new ships with better engines. They opened trade routes with species that had treated them with respect. They expanded their research programs. They planned colonies on worlds that had never been explored before. They did not do these things out of anger. They did it out of simple determination. They had been rejected, and so they would succeed without the Council's help. They requested a meeting with Captain Bradford. James agreed, and they talked for 3 hours. When the meeting ended, they announced that they would be establishing a formal alliance with Earth. Though wanting to restore their lost profits, sent an urgent message asking for trade relations to resume on Earth's terms. Within weeks, 10 other species had made similar requests. The Galactic Council watched as the galaxy was reorganizing around humanity. Not because of human power or force, but because humans had simply removed themselves, and the galaxy had realized that it needed them more than they needed the galaxy. And Lyra and all the others who had mocked James Bradford began to understand the truth. They had tested humanity by rejecting them. Humanity had passed the test not by fighting back, but by walking away and succeeding anyway. The silence of Earth's withdrawal was louder than any weapon could ever be. And in that silence, every species in the galaxy was learning the same lesson. Humans were not to be mocked. They were to be respected. Because when humans decided they did not need you, they meant it. The age of humanity's silence had only just begun. 5 years had passed since Captain James Bradford walked out of the crystalline halls. 5 years of human silence. 5 years of humanity building alone. The research facilities on Mars had expanded. New laboratories stretched across the Red Plains. Scientists from Earth, from the lunar bases, and from the orbital platforms all worked together. They had one goal: to create technology that was better than what the galaxy had, not different, not equal, better. Dr. Monroe stood in Laboratory 7 and looked at the readings on the screen. Her hair was grayer now. She had been working 18-hour days for 5 years, but the numbers she was seeing made everything worth it. The new engine design was complete. It was called the Bradford Drive, named after Captain James. Early tests showed that it could achieve faster-than-light speeds that exceeded Council standards by 30%. Not a little faster, 30% faster. Around her, young human scientists cheered. They knew what this meant. This was not just technology. This was proof. This was proof that humans did not need the galaxy's help to be great. In the medical research complex near Earth, Doctor was leading a team that had just completed work on a cure for a disease called the Void Sickness. The Void Sickness had killed millions across the galaxy for thousands of years. The Galactic Council had declared it incurable. They had said that some diseases were simply too complex, too alien to their understanding, too deeply rooted in the biology of certain species. But humans did not accept this. Humans looked at the problem differently. They saw patterns that others had missed. They found connections that seemed impossible. They worked for 5 years and they found the cure. When the announcement was made, the medical community across the galaxy exploded with excitement. 7 species that had suffered from the Void Sickness now had hope. A disease that had killed billions could be stopped, and it had been solved by humans, by people who the Council had called fragile and emotional and unprepared. Stood in front of the announcement camera, he did not look at the Council. He did not address them or ask them to accept his work. He simply released it to the galaxy. Any species that wanted it could have it. Any doctor could use it. It was a gift from humanity to all life in the galaxy. They received the treatment first. Within months, thousands of their citizens who were dying from the Void Sickness were being saved. They understood what this meant. The humans had rejected the Council, but they had not rejected the galaxy. They had separated themselves from the Council's control, but they remained connected to the galaxy's people. The leaders called a meeting with Captain Bradford. James met with them on a neutral space station. The conversation lasted for 5 hours. When it was over, they announced that they had established a formal alliance with Earth. The humans now had official recognition from a species that was older and more powerful than most in the galaxy. They had protection. They had partnership. But they did not go to the Galactic Council to announce it. They simply told the people of the galaxy directly. They came next. The merchants had spent 5 years watching human technology become better and better. They watched as other species started buying from humans instead of from traders. They watched as they grew wealthier through their alliance with Earth. They could not bear to watch any longer. A merchant called Tala sent a message to James Bradford. She asked for a meeting. James agreed. Tala was small, even for a. She had spent her entire life making trades and building partnerships. She understood the language of profit and loss better than any other species in the galaxy. When she met with James, she was direct. "We made a mistake," she said. "We did not mock you at the Council, but we did nothing to defend you. Now we want to partner with you again. We want to trade with you. We want to make both our species richer." James considered her words. Talo expected him to refuse. She expected him to remember that they had not helped when things were difficult. Instead, James said yes. This decision surprised many humans, but James understood something important. The goal was not to punish species for what they had done. The goal was to build something better. If they wanted to work with humanity, then humanity would work with them. The trade partnership resumed, but this time it was on different terms. They gave humans access to their most advanced technology. In return, humans shared the Bradford Drive and access to the new medical treatments. Both species became richer. Both species became stronger. Other species began to understand the pattern. The humans would work with anyone who treated them with respect. They would share their technology with allies. They would not demand apologies for the past mockery. They simply wanted respect. That was all they had ever wanted. Over the next years, the Galactic Council watched as the galaxy reorganized around human achievement. They became official allies of Earth. They rebuilt their entire trading network using human technology. They began studying human engineering with genuine fascination. Even some smaller species that had never been important to galactic politics began reaching out to Earth, hoping to benefit from human advancement. The Council sent messages asking for negotiations. The messages were acknowledged but not answered. The Council requested meetings. The meetings never happened. The Council demanded recognition of its authority. The authority was simply not recognized. In the minds of the galactic community, the Galactic Council became less important every single day. It was not that humans had destroyed it or attacked it. It was that the Council had made itself irrelevant by rejecting humanity. And now that humans were succeeding brilliantly without the Council, there was no reason to care about what the Council said. Sent a personal message to James Bradford. In it, he admitted that the Council had been wrong about humans. He said that he understood now. He asked if there was any way to repair the relationship. The message was acknowledged. James did not respond with words. Instead, he sent a gift. It was a small device that used the Bradford drive technology. It was one of the first drives ever made, and it was beautiful to look at. It represented what humans could do when they were not mocked and rejected. The gift arrived on the, held it in his hands and understood the true message. It was not an apology from the humans. It was not asking for forgiveness. It was proof that humans did not need anything from the Council. They were simply offering this beautiful thing because they could, because they had become great enough to offer gifts to everyone, even those who had hurt them. On Mars, Dr. Monroe looked at the readings from the Bradford drive test. The engine was working even better than expected. Humans had achieved something remarkable. They had not just created technology that was good. They had created technology that was transforming the entire galaxy. The signal came from deep space. It was not an invitation, it was a warning. The Void Collective had been a myth for so long that many species had forgotten they were real. Ancient texts talked about them. Old records described encounters with them thousands of years ago. But for 10,000 years, the Void Collective had not been seen at the edges of known space. Everyone had assumed they were gone. Everyone had assumed the danger had passed. They were wrong. The Void Collective was a species that consumed worlds. They did not colonize them. They did not study them. They simply took all the resources and left nothing behind. They were machines and flesh combined into something that was neither truly alive nor truly dead. They were hungry. They were endless. They were expanding through space like a dark wave that devoured everything in its path. The first human colony near the outer edge of known space detected them. The colony sent an emergency message to Earth. But the message also went to the Galactic Council, because the Council's early warning system was still active even if humans were not cooperating with them. The Council called an emergency session. For the first time in 5 years, representatives gathered in the crystalline halls. They looked at the data. They looked at the reports. They understood that they were facing something that could destroy them all. Delegate spoke first. "This is a threat to all of galactic civilization," he said. "We must form a united defense. Every species must contribute. Every species must fight." The Council worked for 3 days straight. They formed a military alliance. They gathered ships from every species. They prepared weapons and fighters and defenses. They made plans for how to stop the Void Collective before it reached the inner planets. Then Counselor Lyra remembered something important. She leaned toward Architect Prime 7. "We need humanity," she said quietly. "Their technology is better than ours now. Their tactics are superior. They have weapons that we have not seen before. We need them." The Council voted. The decision was unanimous. They would ask humanity for help. A message was prepared. It was addressed to Captain James Bradford. It explained the danger. It explained that the Galactic Council needed humanity's assistance. It explained that if humanity did not help, the entire galaxy could fall. The message was sent through every communication channel available. Then the Council waited. Hours passed, no response came from Earth. Sent a second message. This one was more direct. It asked not as the Council, but as one species to another. It admitted that the Council had been wrong. It asked for forgiveness. Still nothing. The days went on. The Void Collective advanced. They had already consumed 3 outer colonies. The refugees from those colonies were fleeing inward toward the safer inner systems. The panic was growing. Species began to question whether the Council could protect them. 1 week after the first message, a new signal came from Earth. The Council held its breath. Perhaps James Bradford had finally answered. Perhaps humanity would help. But the signal was not a message. It was something else entirely. Human ships began to appear at the coordinates where the Void Collective was advancing. Not hundreds, thousands. They came in waves, emerging from faster-than-light jumps with a precision and coordination that the Council had never seen before. Captain James Bradford was commanding the fleet from the flagship, a massive ship called the Victory. It was built with the Bradford drive technology and equipped with weapons systems that the Council did not fully understand. James did not send a message to the Council. He did not ask for permission or coordination. He simply positioned his fleet between the Void Collective and the inner planets. The battle began. Human fighters moved with incredible speed. They used tactics that seemed to ignore the normal rules of space combat. Where the Council's forces moved in standard formations, the humans moved in complex patterns that made it almost impossible to predict where they would be next. The Void Collective sent its units forward. They crashed against the human line like a dark wave against a wall, but the wall did not break. Instead, human weapons fired with perfect timing and perfect precision. Void units exploded in bursts of radiation. For 3 days, the battle raged. Human ships fell. Humans died protecting the galaxy. But more human ships kept coming. More humans kept fighting. The Void Collective was vast and powerful, but it had never faced an enemy like this. It had never faced an enemy that was willing to die to protect others. It had never faced an enemy that had created weapons specifically designed to counter its tactics. On the 4th day, the human fleet finally pushed the Void Collective back. The dark wave that had seemed unstoppable was stopped. Then it was broken. Then it began to retreat. James ordered the pursuit. For 5 more days, human ships chased the Void Collective away from known space. They drove it back beyond the edge of explored territory. They made sure that what remained of the collective would not be able to threaten the galaxy again in this generation. When it was over, James brought the fleet home. He did not stay in the battle zone. He did not demand recognition or thanks. He simply leaving the Council to understand what had just happened. The numbers were clear. Human losses were heavy. 53,000 humans had died to protect the galaxy. 53,000 people who had been rejected by the Council only 5 years before. 53,000 humans who had given their lives for species that had mocked them. But they had saved the galaxy. They had done what no Council military force could have done alone. They had stopped the Void Collective. The Council called an emergency session. Every delegate was present. The chamber was full of tension and confusion and gratitude and shame. Stood up, he was the one who had mocked humans most aggressively. He was the one who had suggested they were too weak and too fragile to join the Council. "We need to send them a message," he said. "We need to offer them whatever they want. We need to acknowledge their greatness." But Architect Prime 7 raised a hand. "We should say nothing," the representative said. "We should wait for them to speak. That is what respect means. That is what honor means." The Council agreed. They sent a simple acknowledgement of the message where they had asked for help. They did not make demands. They did not make offers. They simply waited. In his office on Earth, Captain James Bradford received the acknowledgement. He read it carefully. Then he set it aside. He had more important things to do. He had to oversee the memorial service for the 53,000 humans who had died. He had to make sure that the galaxy understood what those deaths meant. Not that humans were superior. Not that humans demanded gratitude. But that humans had the strength and the courage to protect those who could not protect themselves. That was enough. That was everything. The galaxy waited to see what humanity would do next. Would they demand payment for their sacrifice? 3 weeks after the victory, a message came to the Galactic Council. It was simple. Captain James Bradford requested a meeting in the crystalline halls. He wanted to address the Council. The hall filled with tension when the message arrived. Every species wondered what would come next. Would humans demand a seat on the Council? Would they demand power? Would they demand that the mockery be addressed and justice be served? The chamber was completely full on the day of the meeting. Representatives from every known species were present. They sat in their usual section. They were there. They sent 3 representatives. Even smaller species that rarely attended council sessions had sent delegates. Everyone wanted to hear what humanity would say. The doors to the crystalline halls opened. Captain James Bradford walked in alone. He was older now. The 5 years of building and the recent battle had added lines to his face. He wore the uniform of Earth Space Command, but there was something different about him. He walked with the confidence of a man who had seen his species tested and proven worthy. James walked to the center of the chamber, the same place where he had stood 5 years before when the council mocked him. The council watched his every movement. He looked up at them. He looked at every delegate one by one. He made eye contact with. The delegate's face was hard to read, but James could see something there. Respect, perhaps, fear, perhaps, both. Then James spoke. 5 years ago, I stood in this chamber and asked for your acceptance. You rejected us. You mocked humanity as fragile and weak and unprepared. You said we did not deserve a place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. He paused. The chamber was absolutely silent. You were right to be careful. You were right to question whether humanity was ready. But you were wrong about what we were and wrong about what we could do. James took a breath. We did not come to this meeting to demand power or position. We did not come to demand that you apologize for what you said 5 years ago. We did not come to demand anything. Leaned forward, he was confused. This was not what he expected. We came to tell you something that is true, James continued. When the Void Collective threatened the galaxy, we did not ask the Council for permission to help. We did not demand that you recognize our greatness first. We simply came. We fought. We died. We protected people we did not know. We protected species that had hurt us. He paused and looked directly at Lyra. Counselor, 5 years ago you said that human emotions were weakness, that our ability to love each other and care for each other made us fragile. But do you know what those emotions did? They gave us the strength to fight for people we had never met. They gave us the courage to die for a galaxy that had rejected us. Your emotions would have told you to stay home. Our emotions made us come anyway. Lyra had no response. James looked back across all the delegates. You mocked us for being young. You said we had only been in space for 200 years. You said that was nothing compared to civilizations that had been growing for thousands of years. But do you know what we learned in those 200 years? We learned faster than any species in the galaxy. We adapted faster. We created better. We became stronger. He began to walk slowly through the chamber. You said we were fragile because we lived for only 100 years. But we did not waste that time arguing about philosophy and tradition. We used every moment to build something great. 53,000 of us died protecting you. 53,000 families lost someone they loved. And you know what? We are still strong. We are still here. We are still willing to protect you, even knowing that you may mock us again tomorrow. He stopped in the center of the chamber. But that is not why I came here today. I did not come here to change your minds or prove that you were wrong. You know you were wrong. You have known it for 5 years. You knew it the moment I walked out of this chamber. James took a step toward the exit. I came here to tell you something simple. We did what we did not for the Council. We did not do it for power or recognition. We did it for your children. He paused. The chamber was so quiet that you could hear the sound of the crystal walls breathing. On a refugee ship fleeing the Void Collective, there were 200 children. They were scared. They did not know if they would survive. My pilots went out and protected them anyway. They protected them because those children did not deserve to die because of a war they had nothing to do with. James looked at all the representatives. In the outer colonies, there were communities that had been growing for 1,000 years. They were beautiful places. My soldiers died to protect those communities. They protected them because those places represented thousands of years of history and achievement. Those places deserved to be saved. He took another step toward the exit. On 5 different worlds, there were children too young to remember that the Galactic Council exists. My people died to protect those children. We protected them because the future belongs to them, and they deserve a chance to see that future. James was almost at the doors now. So when you ask yourselves why we did this, remember this: we did it because the galaxy is full of life that matters. It is full of children and communities and dreams and histories that are worth protecting. We did not need the Council to tell us this. Our emotions told us. Our capacity to love told us. Our strength told us. James reached the doors. You rejected humanity because you did not understand us. You mocked us because you were afraid of us. But now you know what we are. We are a people who will fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. We are a people who will protect those who have hurt us. We are a people who will build things of beauty even in a universe that does not want us. He turned to face the Council one final time. And you know the strangest part? We hold no grudge. We carry no anger. We are here. We are part of this galaxy. and we will be here whenever you need us to be." Then Captain James Bradford turned and walked toward the exit. This time, the moment was different from 5 years before. This time, the silence that followed was not shock or confusion. This time, the silence was recognition. It was the silence of a council of species understanding that they had met something greater than themselves. James walked through the great doors of the crystalline halls. The doors closed behind him with a soft sound. For a long time, no one in the council chamber spoke. No one moved. They sat in the silence and understood what they had just experienced. Was the first to speak. His voice was quiet and serious. "We have made a grave mistake," he said to the other delegates. "But I believe this mistake has taught us something valuable. We have been mocked and rejected by a people who could have destroyed us. Instead of destroying us, they saved us. That is not weakness. That is not something to mock. That is something to honor for all the ages of the future." Architect Prime 7 made a sound like wind through a crystal cavern. It was a sound of agreement and understanding. Counselor Lyra closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something had changed in her ancient face. She had understood finally what humanity was, not a species to be feared or mocked, but a species to be respected and cherished as long as the galaxy existed. Outside the crystalline halls, on the platform where ships docked, Captain James Bradford stood looking at the stars. He had said what needed to be said. He had walked away once again, just as he had promised. But this time, the galaxy would never forget him, and the age of human silence had finally ended. What came next would be an age of human greatness, not the greatness of conquest or domination, but the greatness that comes from protecting others, the greatness that comes from building things of beauty, the greatness that comes from a species that learned to love the entire galaxy as their own people. The Galactic Council sat in silence, and in that silence everything had changed. The age of the Council was not over, but its time as the center of galactic power was finished. Now the galaxy would move to a new center, and at that center stood humanity, not demanding power but earning respect through their actions and their hearts. Captain James Bradford boarded his ship and began the journey home to Earth. Behind him, the entire galaxy had transformed, and ahead of him the future was waiting to be built. Would they demand power and position? Would they demand that the Council step down? The galaxy waited in silence for humanity to speak. And they had done it alone. They had done it after being rejected. They had done it with their own strength and their own minds. The message was clear to everyone now. When you rejected humanity, humanity did not fight. They did not make demands. They simply succeeded so brilliantly that the entire galaxy could not help but notice. The silence had been the greatest message of all. The chamber fell into a silence deeper than any silence that had ever filled it. It was the silence of 47 species realizing that they had just made a terrible mistake. It was the silence of powerful beings watching a human walk away with more dignity than they could ever claim. James Bradford did not look back. He kept walking until the great doors of the crystalline halls closed behind him. The Council remained in silence, and in that silence something had changed forever.